Hey guys, I'm T and welcome to the channel. If you're new here, we make trendy and fun crochet tutorials twice a week, and if you haven't already, smash that like button, drop a comment down below, and subscribe to join in on the fun. For today's tutorial, we're making a casual cable stitch sweater. A few humble twists, an eye-catching alpine detail, and mellow mesh stitches round out this subtle make. Speaking of, if you're looking for more minimal makes, you are in the right place. We have hundreds of easy-to-follow minimalist crochet tutorials and patterns, with even more dropping twice weekly, so consider clicking the bell to subscribe and you'll never miss an upload. Also, do me a huge favor and give this video a big thumbs up if you like it, or 2 thumbs down if you don't. Either way is a great way to show support so I can keep putting out free tutorials every Wednesday and Sunday. Now, it's time to get on the show, so without further ado. For this project, any category 4 yarn will work, but I used a total of 425 grams, and that's 950 yards if you're stateside. As for tools, a 5mm hook, scissors, stitch markers, and a tape measure. There is a written pattern down below. Use offer code TCDDIY for a discount off any $9.99 plus order, and enter this week's pattern giveaway by telling us which meal you prefer, breakfast or dinner. I absolutely love breakfast. Details for the giveaway down below. We're using 5 stitches for this project, and they'll be as follows. Chain, slip stitch, single crochet, half double crochet, double crochet, and treble crochet. This tutorial is made for a size small. You can adjust it for your size, and we explain how to in the video, so let's get started. Getting this top started, we're all going to grab our category 4 yarn and make a slip knot. Then we're all going to grab our 5mm hook and start off by making an odd number chain the width that we'd like for the bottom of our front panel detail to be, and it does need to be a minimum of 17 chains. Now I'd like for mine to be roughly 4 inches or 10 centimeters, so I'm going to start by making a chain 17. Now that we have our chain, we're all going to add one additional chain that's going to count as the base chain, so now I have a total of 18. From here, we're going to block off that last chain and do a chain 2. That chain 2 doesn't count as a stitch, that's our turning chain. Then we're going to put 1 half double crochet into every chain. So yarn over, preparing for a half double crochet. Into that chain that we blocked off, or the third chain from our hook, we're all going to insert with a half double. So pull through all 3, and from here continue with 1 half double crochet into every chain. We've just put 1 half double crochet into every chain. Now from here we're going to do our row 2, which is going to be a single crochet row. So chain 1, flip our work, and put 1 single crochet into every stitch. We are back and we have just completed our row 2. Now let's get started on our row 3, or our first cable stitch row. So we're all going to chain 2 and flip our work. Now when it comes to doing any of our cable stitch rows, we're always going to be worked into our previous odd number row. So since we're working our row 3, we're going to be working into our row 1. Now it's going to start with 1 front post treble crochet. That's going to be our dividing stitch. What we're going to do is yarn over. Finding that first stitch from our row 1, making sure we're not working into that chain 2, we're going to do 1 front post treble crochet. So bring our hook down underneath the body of that first half double crochet from row 1, bring your hook underneath and through the other side, then yarn over and pull through. From here, all we're going to do is yarn over and pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left on our hook. So yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Now that that stitch is completed, we're going to get started on our first twist. So for our first twist, we're going to start with a yarn over of 2, preparing for a front post treble crochet. Taking a look at our row 1 again, we're going to skip that following stitch, then put 1 front post treble crochet into each of the following 2 stitches. So we're going to skip 1, underneath the body of that next stitch, bring your hook underneath, through the other side. Then yarn over, pull through, and again, yarn over and pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left on our hook. Now that that first front post treble crochet is completed, another front post treble into that following stitch. So yarn over twice. Underneath that following stitch, bring your hook underneath, through the other side, pull through. Yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2, pull through 2. Now to do the twist portion, we're going to do another treble crochet, working back into that one skip stitch. So yarn over twice. Bring your hook back, underneath the body of that first skip stitch, through the other side, pull through, then yarn over and pull through 2 until we all have 1 loop left on our hook again. Now that is our first twist. For this design, we're going to be putting 2 twists right next to each other, so we're going to be doing the same thing. So yarn over twice again. We're going to do this a little bit faster, so we're going to skip that following stitch from our row 1, 1 front post treble crochet into each of the following 2. So like I said, skip 1, underneath the next, with 1 front post treble, so pull through 2 till we have 1 loop left on our hook, yarn over twice again for another front post treble underneath that following stitch. Then to do the twist portion, 1 front post treble into that skip stitch. So yarn over twice, into that skip stitch, we're going to bring our hook back, through the other side, pull through, then pull through 2 until we all have 1 loop left on our hook. Now that's going to be our twist detail. Now in between our twist detail, because that twist is going to be within the beginning and the end of this detail, we are going to be doing alpine stitches. Now to do our alpine stitches, for everyone, no matter what size we're making, we're all going to start by skipping 7 stitches from our previous row and then putting 1 half double crochet into the following. We're skipping 7 because we did a total of 7 stitches here. So just to do that together, here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So into that following, insert with 1 half double crochet, and then we're going to do a front post double. So from here, yarn over. Finding that next stitch from our row 1, we want to make sure that we're not working into that following stitch because that half double crochet counts as that stitch. So underneath the following, we're going to do 1 front post double. So insert underneath, pull through. When we have these 3 loops on our hook, we're going to pull up tall, pull through 2, and pull through 2. Now for this alpine stitch detail, all we're going to do is alternate between 1 half double and 1 front post double till we have 8 stitches left. So just to get the following half double crochet started, yarn over. We are going to skip 1 stitch from our previous row because this front post double crochet counts as that stitch. So into that next, insert with a half double crochet. And just to do the next stitch, which is a front post double, yarn over. We're going to skip that following stitch from our previous odd number row because remember that half double crochet counts as that stitch. Then underneath the following, insert with a front post double. We're just going to continue to repeat those 2 stitches until we all have a total of 8 stitches left. And just as a really quick tip, because we originally made an odd number of stitches, the last stitch in everyone's alpine stitch detail should be a half double crochet. Now my last stitch was actually the half double crochet that we just did together, so I'm going to take apart that last front post double, and now we should all have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 stitches left. Now we're going to close off the row with our twists. So they're going to be done exactly the same way as the first twist that we did at the beginning of the row. So from here, yarn over twice. We are going to skip 1 stitch from our previous row, but we want to make sure that we are not counting that following stitch from our row 1, because that half double crochet counts as that stitch. So we are going to skip that following stitch, and then into the stitch right after that, 1 front post treble crochet into each of those. So we are skipping 1, underneath the following with 1 front post treble, underneath the following with another front post treble, then 1 front post treble into that skip stitch. So yarn over twice, making sure we're working into that first skip stitch and not the half double crochet that's right underneath that alpine stitch half double. Bring your hook underneath, pull through 2, 2, and 2. Then we're going to do another twist, so yarn over twice again. Skip 1 stitch from our previous odd number row, 1 front post treble crochet into each of the following 2 stitches. So there's my first, then another one into that following stitch, then worked into our skip stitch, another front post treble. Now we should all have 2 stitches left. We're now going to complete the row into that second to last stitch with 1 front post treble, Then close off the row with just one half double crochet into the last stitch from our previous row. Now we should all have the same amount of stitches as chains that we made still, because we're not doing any increases or decreases yet. Now for this portion of our piece, every even number row is going to be a single crochet row. So all we're going to do is chain one, flip our work, and put one single crochet into every stitch, and I'll meet you back at the end of the row. We are back and our first 4 rows are complete. Now let's get started on our row 5, so chain 2 and flip. Now getting started on our row 5, or any odd number row for this matter, our twists are always going to be the same. So since we're working on our row 5, we are going to be inserting our hook into our row 3, our previous odd number row. So we are going to start with our front post treble crochet. So yarn over twice. Into that first stitch from our previous odd number row, insert with one front post treble crochet. Once we have that completed, we're going to do our twist. Like I said, they are going to be done exactly the same, so yarn over twice. Taking a look at our previous odd number row, so our row 3 in this case, we are going to skip that first stitch, then put one front post double treble crochet into the following 2. So skip one, underneath the body of that next with one front post treble, yarn over twice again, underneath that following stitch with another front post treble crochet. Once we have that completed, we do need to do our twist, so yarn over twice, working back into that skipped stitch, insert with one front post treble. Then we're going to do another twist, so yarn over twice again. Skipping that following stitch, underneath that next stitch with one front post treble, another front post treble underneath the next, then to do our twist, one front post treble into that skip stitch. And now our twist is completed. Now from here we're all going to do our Alpine stitch detail. Now when it comes to doing our Alpine stitch detail, we are still going to be repeating a half double and front post double crochet stitch, working into our previous Alpine stitch detail, but our stitches need to be staggered. So since the first stitch from our previous Alpine stitch section was a half double crochet, we are going to be putting a front post double crochet into there. So into that half double crochet, pull through, pull up tall, pull through 2, pull through 2. So that means our following stitch is going to be a half double crochet. So we are going to be skipping 8 stitches from our previous row, because now we have a total of 8 stitches here, and then half double crochet into the next. So counting that out together, here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Into that next stitch, 1 half double crochet. Then from here, continue to repeat our front post double and half double crochet until we're ready to do our next twist detail. Now I actually just have 1 stitch left, so I'm just going to do that with you guys. Front post double crochet for everyone is going to be the last stitch in our Alpine stitch detail for this row. Then we're going to do our twist. Our twists again are going to be done exactly the same way. So yarn over twice. Skip 1 stitch from our previous odd number row. Underneath the body of that next with 1 front post treble. Underneath that following stitch, another front post treble. Working into that skip stitch with another front post treble. Then another twist. So yarn over twice, skip 1 stitch, and then 1 front post double treble crochet into each of the following 2. Now that those 2 front post treble crochets are completed, 1 front post treble into that 1 skip stitch. Now that we have that twist, close off the row with 1 front post treble, and then 1 half double crochet into the last stitch from our previous row. We're back and our row 5 is complete. Now, every even number row, like I said, is going to be a single crochet row, so chain 1, flip our work, and put 1 single crochet into every stitch. So we are back. We have just completed our row 6. Now from here, it is going to be a repeat of rows 3 through 6 until we get the height of this portion that we'd like. So I'm just going to get started on the following row as a really quick refresher, then I'll let you do the rest on your own. So getting started on row 7, chain 2 and flip our work. Now since we're about to get started on row 7, it is going to be a repeat of our row 3. Our twists are always going to be the same. So just do this quickly. Do our first front post treble crochet. Then we're going to do 2 twists, and then I'll meet you back to get started on our Alpine stitch detail. Our twists are now complete. Now we're about to get started on our Alpine stitch detail. So we're going to start with a half double crochet into the 8th stitch from our previous row. So counting out a total of 7, because we just took up a total of 7 for our post stitches. Here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 into the 8th with 1 half double crochet. Then into that following stitch from our previous Alpine stitch detail with a front post, double crochet. And just continue to repeat those two until we're ready to get started on our following twist detail. And then once we reach it, we're going to do 2 twists, a front post treble, and a half double crochet. And now that we have just completed our row 7, we can continue on with the rest of this portion. So we're just going to continue, like I said, to repeat rows 3 through 6. All of those links will be linked in the description, by the way, until we have a portion that can reach from the bottom of the sweater, so you can make this cropped or full length. You guys get to decide. Until we have a portion that reaches mid-breast. Now I'll meet you back right after we complete a single crochet row, and we're about to get started on a repeat of row 3. So we are back. I've just completed the height portion of this detail, and I have a total of 10 rows. This height is roughly 2.5 inches or 6 centimeters. Now what we're going to do from here is the same thing that we've been doing, but now we're going to be adding increases into our Alpine stitch detail. Now before we get started on the following row, we are going to want to make sure that we're inserting stitch markers into both ends of this last single crochet row. So getting started on our first increase row, now that our stitch markers are in place, we're going to get started with our twist. That's going to be done the same way still. So chain 2, flip our work. We're going to do our front post treble, 2 twists, and then I'll meet you back before we get started with our Alpine stitch detail. So now that our twist is completed, we're going to get started with the increase Alpine stitch detail. So what we're all going to want to do is half double crochet into the 8th stitch from our previous row. Now we are still skipping 7 stitches because we just took up a total of 7 stitches here. So counting that out together, here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Into that 8th stitch, we're all going to do an increase of 2 half double crochets. So yarn over, into that stitch with 2 half doubles. There's 1, into that same stitch with a second half double crochet. Then we're going to do a front post double crochet into that next stitch into our previous Alpine stitch detail. So this is per usual, front post double, and from here we're just going to do our normal half double crochet and front post double crochet until we have 1 stitch left into our Alpine stitch detail to work into. Now I have just that 1 stitch left, and into that last stitch we're going to do an increase of 2 half doubles. So yarn over, still going to skip 1 stitch from our previous row because this front post double crochet counts as that stitch. Then an increase of 2 half double crochets. So there's 1, there's 2. Now just as a really quick tip, we should have 2 more stitches than our previous Alpine stitch detail. Now for those of you that have my numbers, I had a total of 1, 2, 3 stitches from my previous Alpine stitch detail. And to count this section out, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now that's looking pretty good. Now what we're going to do from here is just close off the row with our same 2 twists, a front post treble, and a half double crochet. We are back and our first increase row is complete. Now we're still doing a single crochet row for every even number rows. So chain 1, flip our work, put 1 single crochet into every stitch, and then I'll meet you back. Our single crochet row is complete. Now we're going to get started on the following rows. So chain 2 and flip. Now the following rows are going to be very similar to our previous run. So go ahead and get the twist completed, and then I'll meet you back to get started on our Alpine. Our twists are complete. Now we're going to do our increase again. So just like our previous row, we are going to do an increase of 2 half double crochets into the 8th stitch from our previous row. So there's my first half double, my second half double into that same stitch. Now we're going to do our Alpine stitch detail. So from here, yarn over, preparing for a front post double crochet. Into the second half double crochet from our previous Alpine stitch detail, we're going to insert our hook underneath the body of that stitch, pull through, pull up tall, pull through 2, pull through 2, then just do our normal half double and front post doubles till we have 1 stitch left into this section. So yarn over, skip a stitch into the next with a half double crochet, and continue. Now I have just 1 more stitch left to do into my previous Alpine stitch detail, and that again is going to be an increase of 2 half doubles. So yarn over, skipping 1 stitch from our previous row and into the next with an increase of 2 half doubles. And just to make sure we're on the right track, we should have 2 more stitches than our previous Alpine stitch detail. So my last one had 5 stitches, so this one should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We're looking pretty good. So now we're going to close off the row with our twists. We are back. we have just completed our increase row, and now from here we're just going to continue to repeat our 2 previous rows until we have a portion that can reach from where we'd like the bottom of the sweater to be. So cropped or full length, that's completely up to you, until we have a portion that reaches all the way up to where 1 inch beneath the base of our neck. I'll meet you back after a cable stitch row. So we are back. I have just completed the height of my detail that I need. Now I have a total of 39 rows. My height is roughly 9.5 inches or 24 centimeters, or the total width that I have is just about 10 inches or 25 centimeters. Now what we're going to do from here is the first half of our neckline. So what we're all going to want to do is try this piece on, and we're going to start by inserting our stitch markers into the stitches that we have, making sure it is an even number of stitches that's nearest to the side of the base of our neck on both sides. So I measured mine up. I inserted my stitch marker into the 12th stitch from the outer edge on both sides, and the stitch markers do need to be placed within the Alpine stitch detail. Then we're going to get started on the following row. So we're going to chain 1, flip our work, put 1 single crochet into every stitch, including into that stitch marker stitch, and then I'll meet you back to get started on the following row. So we've just put 1 single crochet into every stitch, including into that stitch marker stitch. Now we're going to get started on the following row, so we're going to chain 2 and flip. Now what we're all going to do from here is start with a decrease of 2 half doubles. So yarn over, insert your hook into that first stitch, pull through, into that next stitch, pull through for 4 loops on our hook, then yarn over, pull through all 4. Then from here we're going to continue with our front post double crochet and half double crochet until we need to do our increase at the end of our Alpine stitch detail, because we're still keeping up with that increase. Now since I just have a few stitches to do, I'm going to do them with you. My following is going to be a front post double crochet. So tracing that following stitch all the way down, we should be directly over a half double. So inserting your hook underneath the body of that half double, through the other side, pull through and do our same front post double per usual. And now I'm actually at the last stitch that I have for my Alpine stitch detail. So like I said, we're still going to do our increase. So there's 1, there's 2 half double crochets. Then from here are 2 twists, our front post treble, and a half double crochet. We are now at the end of our cable stitch row. From here, it is going to be a repeat of those 2 previous rows, until we then have a neckline edge that reaches roughly 1 inch away from the side of the base of our neck. So we are working on the height of this neckline portion, but we do want to have a really smooth curve, so we're just going to continue to decrease at the beginning of every odd number row. Then once we have that, I will meet you back right after a single crochet row, then we can work on the height of the shoulder together from there. So we are back. We have just completed the slant portion of our neckline. Now I have a total of 46 rows. My height is now 11.5 inches or 29 centimeters. Now from here, we're just going to do our regular rows until we reach the top of our shoulder. So just to get started on the following row with you, we're all going to chain 2 and flip. And our Alpine stitch detail is going to be the same per usual. So since that first stitch from our previous Alpine stitch detail was a half double, we're all going to do a front post double into there. Now this is a little bit wider, so go ahead and just find that stitch and insert your hook underneath. Then yarn over, preparing for a half double and half double. We're going to continue doing this. Remember that we are still doing the increase at the end of our Alpine stitch detail as well. So I am actually already here. So this is my last stitch. I will be doing my increase per usual. Then we're going to finish off with our twists, front post treble, and half double. Then to get started on the following row together, chain 1, flip our work, single crochet into every stitch. Then I'll meet you back at the beginning of our following row. Our single crochet row is complete, so let's get started on the following row. So chain 2 and flip. Now remembering for our Alpine stitch detail, all of our stitches need to be staggered. So since the first stitch from our previous Alpine stitch detail was a front post double, we're going to do a half double crochet into that first stitch, then continue on with our Alpine stitch detail. Remember, we are still increasing at the end of our detail. Now our Alpine stitch detail is complete. Then continue with our 2 twists, front post treble, and half double to complete the row. From here, we're just going to continue to repeat these rows until we get the total height that reaches the top of our shoulder. And I'll meet you back right after a cable stitch row. So we are back. We have just completed the total height of our strap. I have a total of 51 rows. My total height is now 13 inches or 33 centimeters. Now we're going to do the same thing on the other side. Now since this isn't reversible, we're going to have to get started by flipping our work over. We're then going to insert our hook into our stitch marker stitch and then work out towards the outer edge. We're going to pull our working yarn through and do a chain up of 1 just to secure, and put 1 single crochet into every stitch. So starting with that same stitch that our chain one's in, insert with a single crochet. And make your way out with 1 single crochet into every stitch. So now that our single crochet row is complete, we're going to get started on the following row. So start with our same front post treble and 2 twists. So now that our twists are completed, we're going to get started with our Alpine stitch row the same way that we normally would. So starting with the 8th stitch from our previous row, make sure we're inserting with an increase of 2 half doubles. And we're going to make our way all the way down, leaving the last 2 stitches with our normal Alpine stitch. Now we should all have 2 stitches left. Now the last thing we're going to do is a decrease, but it is going to be a front post double crochet combined with a half double crochet decrease. So what we're going to do is yarn over, insert our hook into that following stitch, which should be a half double crochet as if it were a regular front post double. So bring your hook underneath, pull through, we're going to pull up tall, yarn over, pull through 2. When we have these 2 loops on our hook, we're then going to yarn over and insert our hook into the last stitch from our previous row. So insert, pull through for 4 loops on our hook, then yarn over, pull through all 4. Now we should all have the same amount of stitches as our previous row. From here, we're going to continue to repeat these 2 previous rows until we have the same amount of rows as our other side's slant portion, and then I'll meet you guys back to finish up with the rest of our strap. We are back, and I have just completed the slant rows for my strap. Now from here, we're just going to continue on with the strap, working on the height. So what we're going to do is chain 2, flip our work. We're going to do our same twists with our same Alpine stitch detail, but whenever we're doing a twist row that ends with a front post double crochet, I will meet you guys back to show you how we're going to close off that row, but everything else will be the same so far. Now we are back. I have just completed one of my strap rows, which is just our twist and our Alpine stitch detail. The last stitch for that row was a half double crochet, and I did a single crochet row back. Now the following row is going to end with a front post double crochet. So go ahead and get this row completed, leaving that last stitch, and I'll show you guys how we're going to close off this row. We are back. We made our way all the way down with our twist row, leaving that last stitch. The last stitch in this row is going to be a front post double crochet, but we do need it to be secured down, so we're going to combine it with a half double. So we're going to yarn over. Inserting our hook into the last half double crochet from our previous Alpine stitch row, we're going to insert, pull through, pull up tall, pull through 2. When we have these 2 loops on our hook, we're then going to yarn over and insert our hook into the last stitch from our previous row. So yarn over, into that last stitch, then we're going to yarn over, pull through for a total of 4 loops for everyone, then yarn over, pull through all 4. And that's it. From here, we're going to continue to repeat these 4 previous rows until we have the same amount of rows as the other side. Once we do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then I will meet you back to get started on the side panel. We are back. We have just completed our other strap. Now from here, we're going to fill in the side panels, and it's going to start with a single crochet row along the edge. So making sure that our work is flipped right side out, we're going to insert our hook into the bottom right corner stitch of our front panel detail. Then what we're going to do is put 2 single crochet into every side cable stitch row and 1 single crochet into every side single crochet row. What we're going to do is pull through and do a chain up of 1. That doesn't count as a stitch, that's just to secure. Then, finding our first side row, it should be a side cable stitch row for everyone, so find that top loop and insert with 2 single crochets. So there's 1 into that same top loop with a second. Now everyone's following side row should be a side single crochet row, so find that top loop and insert with just 1 single crochet. Let's do this once more. Our side cable stitch row is our next row, so find that top loop and insert with 2 singles. There's 1, there's 2, into our following side row, which is a side single crochet row. Find that top loop and insert with just 1. Continue doing this until we're worked into our stitch marker stitch, which is a side single crochet row, and then I'll meet you back. We've made our way up and worked into our stitch marker side row. Now we do want to make sure that we're inserting a stitch marker into that last stitch just so we know where this portion stops and ends, but we do need to make sure that the amount of stitches that we have right here are in an odd number. So if yours is an even number, go ahead and just add 1 additional stitch into that same last row and then insert your stitch marker into that last stitch. Now from here, we're going to continue to do what we've been doing. So 2 single crochet into every side cable, 1 single crochet into every side single, making our way all the way up, and then I'll meet you guys back when we worked into our last side row. So we've just made our way all the way up with our single crochet row, and do a chain up of 1 and cut. Now since we just finished up this single crochet row, we're actually just going to go ahead and do the same thing on the other side. So since we want to show the front of our single crochet row, for the left side we're going to insert our hook into the top corner stitch and then work our way down with our single crochet row. Again, still putting 2 single crochets into every side cable, 1 single crochet into every side single until we reach our stitch marker side row. Then from there, continue on with the same stitch sequence, but remembering that if you guys had to add an additional stitch on the other side, you will have to add it on this side as well to keep both sides equal. And we do want to make sure that we're inserting our stitch marker into the same stitch. Now, I'll meet you guys back once we make our way all the way down to this bottom corner without doing a chain up 1 and cut. So we are back. We have just completed the single crochet row along the left side of our detail. Now we're going to fill this in. So from where we're at, we're all going to chain 1 and flip our work. So this is going to be the mesh stitches. So what we're going to do is single crochet into that first available stitch. Then right after that single crochet, we're all going to chain 1, skip a stitch, and single crochet into the next. Now so far for this row, we should have a total of 3 stitches. That single, that chain space, and our single crochet again. Again, chain 1, skip a stitch, single crochet into the next, and we're going to continue doing this until we have 1 stitch left right before our stitch marker stitch. We've made our way down with our mesh stitch. Now we should all have 1 stitch left right before our stitch marker stitch. So what we're going to do is chain 1, and into that stitch marker stitch, we're all going to do an increase, and it's going to be 1 single, half double, and double, all into that stitch marker stitch. Now we can take that out since we don't really need that anymore, and it will get in the way, so we're going to skip 1. Into that next stitch, which was our stitch marker stitch, start with a single crochet. Into that same stitch with a half double crochet. Then into that same stitch once more with a double crochet, and now we're going to connect it into the base, and the base is going to be all the single crochets on the other side of that increase. So what we're going to do is count up the next 2 available stitches. There's 1, there's 2. Into that second stitch, insert with a slip stitch. Now that slip stitch doesn't actually count as a stitch, that's just to connect. Then to work our way up to the following row, we're going to slip stitch into that following stitch into the base. That slip stitch also doesn't count as a stitch, and flip our work. Then from here, we're going to do our mesh stitch all the way down. So finding that first stitch from our previous row, not working into any of those slip stitches into the base, we're going to insert with a single crochet, chain 1, skip a stitch, single crochet into the next. So this row won't have any increases or decreases, so make your way all the way down. Our second row is complete. Now we're going to just repeat the following 2 rows. So just to do it together, we're going to start with 1 single crochet into that first stitch, chain 1, skip a stitch, single crochet into the next, and continue this till we all have 2 stitches left. Now we're back. We should all have 2 stitches left at the end of our row 3. Just to do our increase together, we're going to chain 1. Skip that second to last stitch, and into that last, just like our previous increase, it's going to be a single, half double, double, all into that last stitch. Then once our increase is completed, we're going to slip stitch it into the second stitch into the base. So there's 1, there's 2, slip stitch it into there. That slip stitch doesn't actually count as a stitch. Then we do need to work our way up to the following row, so slip stitch into that following stitch into the base. Still doesn't count as a stitch, flip our work. Then just do our mesh stitch row all the way down. So inserting your hook into the last stitch from our previous row, not into any of those slip stitches into the base. Start with a single crochet, chain 1, skip a stitch, single crochet into the next, and just continue doing this to reach the end of the row. Then from here, all we're going to do is continue to repeat our 2 previous rows until we don't have any more stitches left to work into. Then I'll meet you back so we can get started on the shoulder. We are back. We've made our way all the way up until we have reached our last stitch. Now from here, we're just going to do a few shoulder rows. Now just as a really quick tip, if the bottom of your piece starts to slant upwards like this, that is completely fine. It'll all even out once when it's completed. But just to get started on the following row, we all should have ended along the top. We're all going to chain 1 and flip. And all we're going to do is our moss stitch rows with no increases and no decreases. So just into that first stitch from our previous row, not into that slip stitch into the base, insert with a single crochet, chain 1, skip a stitch, single crochet into the next, and that's it. We're just going to continue this to reach the end of the row. When we do, chain 1, flip our work, and repeat. Is just continue to repeat this row until we now have a portion that can reach roughly 2 inches past the tip of our shoulder. Then once we have this, we're actually going to repeat on the other side. So as you guys can see, I already have my other side completed. It's going to be done exactly the same way as this first side. So just to talk you through it, insert your hook into the bottom corner stitch of the other side of your cable stitch detail. Then just do the same amount of rows plus the same shoulder rows that we're about to do, and then I will meet you guys back. We are back and the entirety of my front panel is complete. Now for the shoulder portion that I just did, I did a total of 5 additional rows for my shoulder, and I did repeat the same thing on the other side. Now the total width that I have from this bottom corner across to the other bottom corner, because the top and the bottom are a little bit different, this width is roughly 22 inches or 56 centimeters. Then my top corners from here across to here is just about 18 inches or 46 centimeters. Now once we have this completed, we're all going to get started on the back panel, and it is going to be just our mesh stitch rows with no increases and no decreases. So let's get that started. We're all going to start by making a chain for the same amount of stitches that we have for our last shoulder row. So for those of you that have my numbers, I have a total of 55 stitches here. So for my back panel, I'm going to start by making a chain 55. And I actually already have my back panel completed, so I'm just going to be doing a small sample size with you. So now that we have our chain, we're all going to get started on our first mesh stitch row. Start by blocking out that last chain and do a chain 1. That chain 1 doesn't count as a stitch, that's our turning chain. Into that chain that we blocked off for the second chain from our hook, insert with a single crochet. So go ahead and insert your hook into that chain with a single crochet. From here, chain 1, skip a stitch, single crochet into the next to reach the end of the row. We've made our way down with our row 1. It is now going to be a repeat of this row, so just to get started on the following row, chain 1, flip our work, single crochet into that first stitch, chain 1, skip a stitch, which should be our chain space from our previous row, single crochet into the next to reach the end of the row. Now from there, all we're going to do is continue to repeat that row, like I said, with no increases and no decreases, until we have a back panel width that is the same width from our top shoulder corner all the way across to the top corner on the other side. So we want to make sure that we're measuring the corners and not the bottom portion. Now I went ahead and already completed my back panel. I have a total of 87 rows. This width is roughly 18 inches or 46 centimeters. Now from here, once we have the entirety of the back panel completed, we can seam it up together. So go ahead and place your front panel on top of your back panel, making sure that your cable stitch detail is along the inside. Then we're going to insert our hook into the top corner stitch of both the front and the back panel. Insert your yarn onto your hook, pull through, and do a chain up of 1 to secure. Then what we're going to do from here is put 1 single crochet into every side row, working in through both the front and the back panel. Then once we reach the top of the cable stitch detail, just 1 single crochet into every stitch, still working in through both the front and the back panel. So finding our first side row, this is mine within the front panel. I'm going to find that top loop and insert. Find the same top loop within the back panel, insert my hook in through there, and now we're going to single crochet around everything. Let's do that again. Into the next side row within the front panel, find that top loop and insert. Next top loop within the back panel, find that top loop, and single crochet. We're going to continue doing this into every side row. Once we reach our side single crochet row along the edge of our detail within the front panel, I will meet you back. So now that we're worked into our last side single crochet row, we're then just going to find the next available stitch into the front panel, still find the next available side row within the back panel, and still put 1 single crochet into both. We're just going to continue on with this until we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, do a chain up 1 and cut and repeat on the other side. So now that our shoulder seams are complete, we're now ready to get started on our side seam. So first things first, we're going to try our piece on, then insert our stitch marker into any odd numbered stitch from the top within both the front and the back panel for the width that we'd like for the armhole to be. Now I'd like for mine to be just about 6 inches or 15 centimeters, so I inserted my stitch marker into the 35th stitch from the top. Then, making sure that our work is still flipped wrong side out, meaning the seam that we have for the shoulder is still along the outside, we're going to insert our hook into the bottom corner stitch of both the front and the back panel. We're going to pull through and do a chain up of 1 to secure. Then a single crochet seam. So start by finding that first stitch into the front panel, go ahead and insert. First stitch into the back panel, go ahead and insert. And single crochet around everything. Once more, first stitch into the front panel, insert. First stitch into the back panel, insert. Single crochet, and continue doing this until we reach our stitch marker. Once we do a chain up of 1 and cut, then repeat on the other side. So now that our sides are all seamed up, now we're going to get started on the length of our sleeve. So first things first, making sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up, we're going to insert our hook into the stitch that we have that's nearest to our side seam within the armhole. Then we're going to insert our yarn onto our hook, do a chain up of 1 to secure. Then just working in the rounds, start with 1 single crochet into that first available stitch. Then we're going to chain 1, skip a stitch, single crochet into the next, still keeping up with our same mesh stitches that we've been doing this entire time. Then I'll meet you back once we're worked into our last stitch right before our shoulder seam. So we've made our way all the way up with our mesh stitches until we reached our shoulder seam. Now from here, all we're going to do is, since that last stitch should be a single crochet, we're going to chain 1, skip over that shoulder seam, then into that first available stitch on the other side of our shoulder seam, insert with a single crochet, then just continue on with our mesh stitches all the way down. So now that we made our way all the way around with our first row, all we're going to do is slip stitch into that chain space that we made when we started this row. So into that chain 1, we're going to insert with a slip stitch. Remember that that slip stitch doesn't actually count as a stitch, that's just to connect. Then we're going to chain 1, flip our work, making sure that we are flipping our work to keep up with the texture of the body. Then continue on with our mesh stitches all the way around. Now for this portion, we aren't going to have any increases or decreases, so just continue on with this row until we reach our elbow, and then I will meet you guys back. And just as a really quick tip, these rows can be a little hard to count, so go ahead and insert your stitch marker into that first sleeve row. So we are back. I have just made my way all the way down to my elbow with my length. I have a total of 44 rows. This length is roughly 8.5 inches or 21 centimeters. Now from here, all we're going to do is a really subtle decrease that leads all the way down to the cuff. Now I'm going to show you guys how to do the decrease rows, and I will let you guys know where I decrease into my piece. But the decrease rows are completely up to you. You guys can do it more frequently or further out. That's completely up to you. Now to get started on our decrease row, all we're going to do is chain 1 and flip. So it's still going to be our mesh stitch row. We're just going to start and end the row with a decrease of 3. So we're going to insert our hook into that first stitch from our previous row, which should be the top of that single crochet. Pull through, top of that next stitch, which is our chain space. Pull through, top of that next stitch, which is our next single crochet. Pull through for 4 loops on our hook. Then yarn over, pull through all 4. Then from here, chain 1, skip that next stitch, which should be a chain space, and single crochet into the next, and continue on with our normal mesh stitch until we all have 4 stitches left. So we've made our way all the way around with our decrease row. We all should have left the last 4 stitches in the row. Then what we're going to do is chain 1, skip that next stitch, which should be a chain 1 space from our previous row, then into the third, second to last, and last, a decrease of 3 single crochets. So skip 1, into that next stitch, which should be the top of that single crochet, pull through, next stitch, pull through, and next stitch, which should be the last in the row, pull through for 4 loops on our hook, then yarn over, pull through 4, there you go, and then slip stitch into that chain space, chain 1, and flip. So that is always going to be how we do our decrease row. Now I already have the entire length of my other sleeve completed. Just to let you guys know, I did a total of 85 rows. This length is roughly 16 inches or 40 centimeters. Now I decided to decrease into every 10th row for my sleeve. So the one that I just did with you guys was my 45th row. My next decrease row is my 55th, 65th, 75th, and then also my 85th row. Then once we have the entire length of the sleeve that we'd like, then I'll meet you guys back so we can get started on the cuff. And once we have the entirety of our sleeve length completed, we're now going to get started on our cuff. So from our last sleeve row, we're all going to start by making a chain the length that we'd like for our cuff to be. I'd like for mine to be just about 2.5 inches or 6 centimeters, so I went ahead and made a chain 12. Now we're going to do a single crochet row. When we have our chain, we're all going to block off that last chain and do a chain 1. That chain 1 doesn't count as a stitch, that's our turning chain. Then into the chain that we blocked off for the second chain from our hook, we're going to insert with a single crochet. Into that next chain, insert with another single crochet, and I'll meet you back at the end of the row. So now that our single crochet row is complete, we're going to connect it into the base. So just finding that next available stitch, insert with a slip stitch. Now that slip stitch doesn't actually count as a stitch, that's just to connect. Then to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch into that following stitch into the base. Still doesn't count as a stitch, and flip our work. Now we're going to make our way down with front post single crochets. So what we're going to do is find the body of that first single crochet from our previous row. We want to make sure that we're not working into any of those slip stitches into the base. We're going to bring our hook underneath that body and through the other side with a single crochet. Let's do this again. Underneath the body of that following single crochet. So in through that gap, underneath, through the other side, single crochet, once more, underneath, through the other side, single crochet. Continue this until we're worked into our last single crochet, not that chain 1. We've just made our way all the way down with our row 2. Now we should have done our last front post single crochet underneath the last single crochet from our previous row. Now we should all have the same amount of stitches as chains that we made, and at the end of our row, whenever we're working on an even number row, we're just going to close it with a single crochet just to even out the edge. So just into the last stitch from our previous row, insert with 1 single crochet. Now that edge single crochet will not count as a stitch, that's just to even it out. From here, we're going to chain 1, flip our work, and do our front post single crochets all the way back down. Now we are not going to be working into that last single crochet from our previous row because we want that edge to be nice and clean. So finding the second single crochet from our previous row, we're going to do another front post single, just like that, and continue with our front post singles, making our way all the way down. So we've made our way all the way down with our row 3. Now we're going to connect it into the base. So just finding that next available stitch into the base, we're going to insert with a slip stitch, same as we did for our row 1. That slip stitch into the base doesn't actually count as a stitch. Then to work our way up to the following row, again, slip stitch into that following stitch into the base, flip our work, and then do our front post single crochets all the way down, closing off that row with a single crochet that does not count as a stitch. From here, continue to repeat our 2 previous rows, making our way all the way around, then I'll meet you back to seam it up. So now that we've made our way all the way around with our front post single crochet rows, we're now going to seam it together. Now, this seam is actually going to be done exactly the same way as our side seam. So just to talk you guys through it, we're all going to make sure that our work is flipped wrong side out, then do our same single crochet seam. When we don't have any more stitches left to work into, do a chain up 1 and cut, then repeat on the other side. Then I will meet you guys back. We are back. Now that both of our sleeves are completed, we can now get started on the bottom band. So first things first, we're going to do a single crochet row, so making sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up. We're going to insert our hook into any one of the side rows that we have along the bottom of our piece. Then into every side row, we are going to skip every other side row. So what we're going to do is insert our yarn onto our hook, pull through, and do a chain up of 1 to secure. Then just find our first side row. This is mine right here. I'm going to find that top loop and insert with just 1 single crochet. We're going to skip that following side row and single crochet into the next. Let's do that again. Skip that following side row, single crochet into the next, and just continue making our way all the way around. But along the bottom of our detail, we will have some stitches, so just put 1 single crochet into each of those stitches. Make your way all the way around, and then I'll meet you back. So our single crochet row is complete. Now from here, we're going to get started with our bottom band, the length, but the length is actually going to be done exactly the same way as the cuff, so I'm just going to talk you guys through it. Once we've slip stitched into that chain space, we're all going to make a chain the length that we'd like for our bottom band to be. I'd like for mine to be just about 2 inches or 6 centimeters, so I'm going to start by making a chain 10. Then we're going to do our front post single crochet rows, making our way all the way around with no increases and no decreases. Then I'll meet you back to seam it all together. So we are back. We have made our way all the way around with our front post single crochet bottom band, and we do need to seam it. Now the seam is going to be done the same way as our cuff and as our sides. So again, just to talk you guys through it, make sure that our work is flipped wrong side out. Do the same single crochet seam that we did, then do a chain up 1 and cut. So now that our bottom band is complete, next we're going to finish up with our collar. So first things first, we're going to make sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up. Then we're all going to do a single crochet row. So working across our back panel, we again are going to skip every other side row exactly the same way that we did for the bottom band. Then once we reach our side rows along the cable stitch detail, we're going to be putting 2 single crochets into every side cable, 1 single crochet into every side single crochet row. Then just 1 single crochet into every stitch, working our way across the front panel. Then just make your way all the way around with our single crochet row, and I'll meet you back. So now that our single crochet row is complete, we're all going to do a half double crochet row. So from where we're at, chain 2, flip our work. Simply put 1 single crochet into every stitch, and I'll meet you back at the end of that row. Now we're going to get started on our following row. So from where we're at, slip stitch into that second chain that we made when we start off the row, and chain 2. Now all we're going to do is alternate between a front post and a back post double crochet. So starting with the front post, we're all going to yarn over. Finding that first half double crochet from our previous row, not that chain 2, bring your hook down, underneath the body of that stitch through the other side and double crochet per usual. So pull through 2, pull through 2. Now let's do our back post. Yarn over. Bring your hook underneath our work now, up through that next gap and through the other side. Pull through 2, pull through 2. Let's do that once more. Yarn over. Inserting your hook underneath the body of that following half double crochet with a front post. Then to do a back post, yarn over, bring your hook underneath our work, in through that next gap, over the body of that next half double, pull through 2, pull through 2. From here, we're just going to continue doing this, making our way all the way around. When we don't have any more stitches left to work into, slip stitch into that second chain that we made and do a chain up 1 and cut. We are back, and now that we have made our way all the way around with our front and back post double crochets, we are actually all done with our piece. Now, the last thing we're going to have to do is just weave in all of our ends. There you have it, y'all. Hope you enjoyed the tutorial. Join us on Instagram, Pinterest, or Twitter. Those links are down below, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Catch you on the next one. Bye!